Here's a heads up weather. This is an update from what I issued a couple of days ago, and it still is in reference to severe weather possibilities for Saturday, tomorrow, as I'm recording this. Hi, I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. Let's first start actually by looking at Friday. I do want to point out that this says Friday, but actually, the way the Storm Prediction Center issues these forecasts, it actually goes till 7 a.m. the next morning. So Friday evening and really late night Friday into Saturday morning is when this is applicable. It's only a marginal risk of severe weather, 1 out of 5, but it does kind of infringe upon our western counties. So I thought I'd get that out there. So this would be valid till 7 a.m. on Saturday. Then this forecast goes 7 a.m. to 7 a.m., so Saturday to Sunday. But everybody knows it's really meant for the mid to late afternoon hours and maybe some of the evening hours. This forecast, so we have a level 2, which is what is still called, but was more commonly called, the slight risk area. So Springfield is right here. West Plains is right here. Northwest Arkansas, Rogers, Fayetteville, Springdale area, all right there. And so level 2. And there is also a tornado risk with this. So the tornado risk really kicks in. The way you interpret this is that green is 2% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of you. That ups to 5% right here in the brown area. And that would technically start around the Branson area, which is right here. It would include West Plains, Harrison, Mountain Home, and go eastward from that point on. Not included in this upped severe or tornado risk is this area of northwest Arkansas behind the label here, which I think is interesting. I'll tell you why, because the learning machine models are putting, the way you look at this is this panel right here is tornado, and then this panel here is hail, and then this panel here is wind. Okay, so there is a little, 5% max area in northwest Arkansas, which I find interesting, a little bit closer to, let's say, the extreme corner of northwest Arkansas, whereas the SPC has a more broad scale and more eastward area. By the way, the squall line, once it develops, has a higher wind risk right there as it gets going. That's from West Plains southward to Little Rock late in the day into the early evening hours tomorrow. Then the NATOcast, this is run from the 12Z data today, but it is intended to be for tomorrow, puts that 5% backing up even more into that same corridor I was just referring to, Bentonville, Fayetteville, that area. So I find that interesting. And what determines whether that's real or not? Whether low pressure can develop here and cause a backing of the winds mostly toward the center of it, such that it enhances the low-level spinning up in northwest Arkansas. I think there's a chance that'll happen. And here's one of the reasons why I think that will be true. If you look at the HRRR 500 millibar flow, the trough is still out here at 1 o'clock on Saturday. The higher level winds are still moving from Oklahoma into this area. This entire area is a favorite area for upward development, so motion that rises upward, which generally, all things being equal, will destabilize any atmosphere, and also encourages low pressure to at least try to develop in this area right here. So all those are interesting factors, and it happens early enough in the day so that if there's a peak heating, which would typically occur late in the afternoon, providing there's not a lot of cloud cover, would match up pretty well with that. So CAPE is one measure of how unstable it is, and we do have these little bands right here. If you see yellow, that is about 2,000 CAPE, which is sufficient given that the wind profiles are very good. So that's something to watch, but there are also, where you see these white areas, that's where storms, according to this model, have already occurred. So what I'm saying is ahead of the storms, some instability does appear to be backing up into these areas. Even in eastern Oklahoma, you see some yellow right there. So it needs to be watched very carefully. So on the simulated radar, same HRRR model, this is the 18Z run of it, at 10 a.m. tomorrow, just a scattering of showers, maybe a couple of rumbles of thunder. But then at 1 o'clock, here's this area right here I'd be watching. Anything ahead of this area, and that includes that northwest Arkansas area. It may come as far north as Greene County and Christian County. Again, the placement of these radar echoes, simulated radar echoes, I would give or take a county on this. So it could go more south, could go more north. It's just not, it looks detailed, but just because something looks detailed doesn't mean it's going to be right. That's at 1 o'clock. And then the whole thing at 4 o'clock, basically the threat area becomes anything out ahead of this main line right here. Nothing behind here has any significance. I do want to change views real quick and look at the Arkansas version of this. This is at 2 p.m. And at 2 p.m., I want you to notice that same kind of squall line area right here where there could be enough backing of the winds and some instability developing to make those storms a little more robust than anything else on the line. Then we advance that 3 hours ahead to 5 p.m. And it shows basically this is out of the southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas area for the most part, but it does basically keep this larger tornado risk area in play well out into Arkansas into the evening hours on Saturday. So that's the update there. I did want to show you one more thing. I think this is curious. This doesn't usually rear up its head in the spring. You see these kind of values all the time, but this is the supercell composite outlook. This begins on the 24th and goes through the 30th. So it's coming up next week, and southwest Missouri and northwest Arkansas is kind of under a high risk for supercells. That doesn't include this storm, really. That's occurring before this time period. So something to keep in mind as we look forward to the last couple of weeks of October.